Thank you so much, Michelle. As she mentioned earlier, I did have the amazing opportunity last summer to participate in the Center's summer internship program, where she kind of touched upon it a bit, but we had some really unique opportunities to be trained in really a little bit of everything: journalism, public relations, media, and we did do a really awesome firearms training course. If any of y'all have any questions or would like some more insight into the program, please just feel free to come up to me after the program. I'd happy to give you any questions or kind of walk you through the process and help you in any way possible. Now today I have the distinct pleasure in introducing our speaker, Allie Beth Stuckey. Mrs. Stuckey is the host of the podcast Relatable, where she breaks down the latest in culture, news, and politics from a Christian conservative perspective. She's a frequent guest on Fox News and the writer and author of the best-selling book, You're Not Enough, and That's Okay. In 2015, Allie began speaking to college sororities about the importance of voting. What started out as a hobby soon turned into a full-time career, with her blog, The Conservative Millennial, launching her into the political media sphere. Today, in addition to podcasting, writing, and making the occasional satirical video, Allie speaks to colleges and organizations about the importance of varying conservative values. Please join me today in warmly welcoming Miss Allie Beth Stuckey.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being here and thanks for having me. So I wasn't the original speaker. This was kind of a last minute thing, but I feel like it was providential because I have a lot to say and I need an audience to say it to, and you guys are the perfect audience for that. So thank you so much for showing up. As you heard, I spoke at UC Berkeley a couple years ago, and I wasn't going to say this, but she reminded me of that. That was in fall of 2018. So I've spoken on college campuses. You guys know it's not always the most welcoming environment for a conservative. And I was speaking to a class which is different. It's not like I had people protesting me or anything like that. And I kind of thought, I went to UC Berkeley thinking, okay, I'm going to give this try to really be fair to both sides, not to be too partisan. And basically, I did a talk about the breakdown of the differences between the left and right. Really thought I was so fair. It was the craziest experience of my life. There were literally people screaming while I was talking in the audience. Like, there were gasps, there were people yelling, there were people standing up. Like, I was giving a presentation on a PowerPoint. This was not like some rally where people are supposed to be talking. It was crazy. I mean, they really, like, when you say they've never heard a conservative person, this was also during the Kavanaugh debacle, and I was very outspoken about that. And they could not believe it when I said, we don't actually know if Ford's testimony is true. I mean, you would have thought that I killed a puppy on stage. It was insane. So that was quite the experience. And my husband was there too, and we have this funny picture where he has his heart monitor, and it's at like 100 beats per minute because he's so stressed out while I'm on stage answering these crazy questions. Anyway, so that's just one awesome opportunity that I've had with this organization. I really can't say enough good things about it. I speak to and with a lot of different organizations, a lot of different groups. They are not all made equal. I mean, there's a lot of great groups out there, but this one they're great people to work with. And that's not true. Even in conservative media and conservative politics, you like to think that everyone who shares your values, that they're all going to be great to work with. That's not necessarily true. This organization definitely is. So you've made a good decision in being here. Just wanted to start saying that. So the reason I think it's providential, or I hope it's providential that I'm here because I have so much to say, is because of everything that we've seen kind of devolve, happen over the past few days. And I think as conservatives, we can all agree that this presidency isn't going the direction that we would like it to, that the country isn't going the direction that we would like it to. And it seems like every couple months, or every week, there's something else that happens that we think, is there anyone left in the whole of the United States that could possibly think that Joe Biden is a competent president? Like, is there anyone who thinks things are going well? And then we've seen everything kind of break down in Ukraine over the past few days. And I've thought about a few things. I've thought about, once again, as I have so many times in my life, how thankful I am to live in the United States. I mean, how many times can you think that you've turned on the news and you've said, I'm so glad that that doesn't happen here. I feel so bad for those people, but I'm so glad that that doesn't happen here. Two, the second thing that I've learned is that really everything does rise and fall on leadership. So whether that comes to the family, whether that comes to a church or an organization or a business, if the person at the helm, if the person steering the ship doesn't know what they're doing, if they're incompetent, if they didn't have enough training, if they're steering you in the wrong direction, even a little bit, everything goes to chaos. Everything goes down. And that's how it feels right now. It feels like we're on a ship in really choppy water. And there's a bunch of other ships that are trying to go in our direction too, and it feels like the people that we have at our helm don't know what they're doing. Or even worse than that, that they do know what they're doing and they're purposely misdirecting us. I don't know if you guys feel like that, but I felt like that a lot over the past couple of years. And so what I want to call you guys to, because that feeling can feel really helpless, it can feel really scary. Especially, I'm a mom, I've got two little ones, I've got a 2.5-year-old and I've got a 10-month-old. And there are definitely days and nights where I'm thinking, what kind of country, what kind of world are they going to grow up in? Are they going to have the same freedom that I've enjoyed my whole life? Things certainly aren't as simple as it was when I was growing up, but are they going to have any semblance of liberty and normalcy, or is it always going to be this state of chaos? And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, you guys are coming of age. I don't know what the world is going to look like in 10 years. I don't know if it's going to get more stable. I hope that we get better leaders. I hope that we get someone in charge who can right the ship, but I don't know. So what I do know is that we need a generation of courageous men and women who are willing to stand up for that which is right. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about courage in the face of cowardice, in the face of the chaos and the confusion that really characterizes our age. And so, in other words, I want to encourage you. And if you think about that word, encourage, I was just thinking about that this morning, we typically think of that as kind of like a compliment or just nice words that someone says to you, oh, that's encouraging. But if you just break down the word really simply, encourage, you're instilling courage in someone. So it's actually something that's way more profound than just saying that your hair looks good today, which it does. Y'all's hair looks really good today. But more than that, to encourage someone is to instill courage into them. So what does courage actually mean? It doesn't mean fearlessness. It doesn't mean that you're never insecure. It doesn't mean that you're not worried about anything or that you're brazen or brash or that you never calculate risks and you're kind of reckless. To be courageous means that in the face of your fear, in the face of your insecurity, in the face of your self-doubt and your worry, that you still do the next right thing. That's what it means to be courageous, to do the difficult thing, to do the hard thing, but the thing that you know is right. So that's what I want to encourage you guys with today. And how you encourage someone, if you're instilling courage in them, again, much more profound than simply just saying nice words, you really have to do that in two ways. One, you have to explain to someone that they have what it takes to take the task that is right in front of them. And then you also have to explain to someone, if you want to instill courage in them, that the task ahead of them is worth the risk. That whatever goal is going to be accomplished, whatever is on the other side, is worth fighting through the fear or the obstacles or the challenges or the impediments that are in front of you. So that's what I want to encourage you with today. That one, I think that you have what it takes when you are looking at the craziness of the world, and even when you're on your college campuses or when you're with your friends or family and you look around and you say, wow, everyone truly is brainwashed. I see all of my friends sharing this piece of pro-abortion propaganda or whatever it is, propaganda about this news story on their Instagram stories, and it seems like everyone around me thinks one way. I'm the only person who's pro-life. I'm the only person who knows a woman is a woman. I'm the only person that knows whatever XYZ issue it is, and you feel hopeless or you feel powerless. I want to encourage you and remind you that you're not, that you are equipped with what it takes to push back against what you know are lies, what you know are corruption, what you know is tyranny, and to fight for that which is good and right and true. And then I also want to remind you that it's worth it. Like, it's worth sticking your neck out. It is worth going out on the line for something. It is worth saying that which is true. Because if you see the state of the world that we're in right now, the chaos that we are in, where really we kind of have, I don't even know if you can use the word graduated, but we've gotten to a point that really is post-truth, that we no longer agree, the two sides in America, on just like basic facts. Some of them I've already mentioned, that life inside the womb is indeed a life, that a woman is a woman, and that a man can't be a woman. Various economic policy, border policy. We just are so far apart because we no longer even agree on what truth is. Is it my truth? Is it your truth? Is it alternative facts? Is it fake news? It's really hard to decipher all of these things. But I think as we can see that acknowledging the truth, especially when you think about something like COVID over the past 2 years, how much misinformation and propaganda have we seen that has then been used as a club to basically beat people over the head with different kinds of mandates and restrictions and closures and lockdowns that haven't done anything to mitigate the spread of a virus and have only hurt us economically and socially. People have even lost their lives because of loneliness and depression due to that. And so I think over the past 2 years, we've seen the importance of truth, the importance of clarity, the importance of transparency, the importance of pushing back against corruption and secrecy that we see in our bureaucracy. I mean, truth can actually save lives. I think we see that in a variety of ways, especially when it comes to something like abortion. The truth about the value of life inside the womb can actually save a life. And beyond that, I don't want to live in a post-truth world. I don't want to live in a world that is rocked by the chaos of propaganda and lies. There's another example of people accepting a lie that is damaging, that actually has detrimental effects. We are seeing the erasure of women, not just in rhetoric, not just in language, but also in women's sports. Like, there we see a man who is taking records, taking scholarship money, taking slots away from girls who have worked their whole lives. We're talking about someone who goes by the name of Leah Thomas, but there are several others as well. We're seeing how the acceptance of a lie actually has a tangible impact on people. It actually negatively affects people. And so that's what I'm trying to remind you, is that you standing up for truth, you standing up for that which we know is true, actually matters. Like, it actually has an impact on people's life. And so what we have to do, because we really are surrounded in so many ways, whether it's in our leadership class, whether it's in academia, whether it's in some ways our peers, we really are surrounded by cowards. And so in order to stand out, in order to be courageous about these issues, what's typically considered culture war issues, these really liberty and values-based issues, these moral issues, we have to do a few things. We have to decide what our line is and hold that line. We have to decide what our hills are and then be willing to die on those hills. We have to decide that this is our boundary and we won't go any farther than that. And here is how I am going to hold that line. So for me, I am never going to write or say that a man is a she. I'm never going to do it. I'm not going to give in to the premise that gender identity trumps biology. And by calling a man a she, I am then giving in to the very damaging policy that we have seen hurt women and girls for the past few years. I'm not going to call a man a she. I'm never going to compromise on the value of life inside the womb. If that baby is made in the image of God, then there is no excuse for murdering that baby. That's a hill that I'm going to die on. I am not going to give in on a variety of things when it comes to the cultural issues that we've talked about, whether it's the border, the importance of self-protection. I'm not going to give in on the government having the authority to tell me when or who or where or how I can worship or what I can and can't say. Like, these are lines that I'm going to hold. These are hills that I hope I don't have to die on, but I will. And really, all of this comes under the umbrella for me of the protection of the most vulnerable, particularly my kids. It's not just for me and my liberty, although that's important and that's certainly worth dying for. But when I think about the next generation, when I think about my babies, and when I think about how I want to protect them and the world that I want them to live in, these have to be hills to die on. See, the left has a lot of hills that they die on, and they never compromise. In fact, they don't just not compromise, they are constantly pushing the line further and further. So the conservatives are constantly backing up and say, okay, you can have that little lynch. You can have that piece of rhetoric. Okay, I'll call this man a she. I don't want to be rude. Okay, I don't want to be called a bigot. So I won't say that I support this policy that I did support, but I'm a little, okay, you're right. I don't want to be called a bigot or a racist or whatever it is on social media. I don't want to be lambasted. I don't want people to talk bad about me. So I'll just give a little bit of territory. The left never does that. They're always marching forward. They're always proceeding. So if we want to gain any ground back, if we want to push back on any of the stuff that we don't believe in, that we see as damaging to our culture, we've got to stop not only receding, but we have to actually push back. And so you don't compromise even an inch, not in your rhetoric, not in your language, not on the values that you hold dear. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't find compromise where there is compromise. It doesn't mean that you can't ever change your mind. But again, you find those few issues that you know for sure, that you are well versed in, that you're passionate about. That's not going to be every issue. Okay, we're finite human beings. That means you don't have the capacity to care about every issue, to know everything about every issue, and that's fine. But you find the few political, social, cultural, political issues that matter most to you, that you will stand for, and you say, this is my line, and you don't back up at all. And you do everything you can to convince other people of your position, because it's worth it. We say a lot on my podcast, politics matter because policy matters, because people matter. Politics affects policy, policy affects people. So whenever people say, you're being too divisive by being political, why do you have to talk about abortion? Why do you have to talk about free speech? Whatever it is, it's offending people. Well, like I said, policy affects people. Policy affects people's lives. Again, over the past 2 years, we've seen that abundantly. A politician with a little bit too much power and a whole lot of ego can really affect and impact someone's life. So that's why we get involved. Not because we want to be divisive. We don't want to be inflammatory. I don't like saying things, honestly, that people see as unpopular. I don't like purposely hurting people's feelings. I don't want people to see me as someone who doesn't want to be accepting of everyone. But I have to hold some lines. Like, we can't compromise on everything just to be accepted by the mainstream if we want to impact anyone at all. And what people see as maybe lacking compassion, for example, if you say that a woman is a woman, or you say that babies inside the womb matter, someone will accuse you of being heartless, that you're phobic in some way, or you're bigoted in some way, or you don't care about women, or whatever it is. What you have to do, rather than giving in to that at all or even starting to feel guilty, you have to think about the other side of that. It's not that you lack compassion towards one group, but that you're actually teeming with compassion toward the other group. So it's not that I lack compassion toward, gender-confused people. It's actually that I'm teeming with compassion for the girls and the women who are taken advantage of because of this change. It's not that I don't care about women who are in difficult situations when they're pregnant. I do. I care so much, and I think we need to stand up for them and advocate for them. But I am teeming with compassion for the life inside the womb, the innocent, defenseless life inside the womb. And so we have to flip the issues in that way and not let ourselves be pushed back on the line because we are afraid of going against the mainstream or because we're afraid of being called a name. So you pick your line and you hold that line. You pick your hills and you're willing to die for those hills, on those hills. And how you do that is you equip yourself with all the knowledge possible. You get really excellent and proficient in that topic. You learn how to argue for it, you learn how to defend it, and then you figure out how you can get involved in advocating for that particular subject. Again, not everything, but a few things. Whether that's supporting a particular candidate, whether that's getting involved in the private or public sector, there's a million things you can do. Maybe it really is just using your voice on social media. All of those things count. But holding the line and pushing back the line, that actually impacts people. And you do have what it takes. When you are told that you need to back down or you need to back off a certain position, really what you have to do is double down. Never apologize for something that you're not sorry for. When the cancel mob comes after you, when the bullies come after you, I just talked to this sweet girl. Her name is Ainsley Airzon, and she came on my podcast, and she is going to be a runner next year at the University of Arkansas, and she wrote an op-ed for the Des Moines Register, basically saying that it's not fair that she is competing against boys who identify as girls. She's worked her whole life to be a collegiate athlete, and any record or any championship that she could win could potentially be taken away from her by a boy whose abilities are going to be insurmountable to her. And her parents reached out to me and just said, thank you so much for asking your audience to encourage her, because she has been getting so much hate. She's been getting death threats. Her dad has sent me some of the graphic tweets that have been sent about her that have been sexual in nature, that have been threatening the worst things that you can possibly think of, all because she said, as a girl, as a Christian, as a conservative, this is simply not fair. She has been getting the worst kind of bullying that you can possibly think of. And I understand people look at a story like that and they say, like, why would I also put myself there? Why would I want to subject myself to that kind of bullying? Why would I want to make myself vulnerable? Well, for people like her, like, she can't stand by herself on the front lines. She needs other women to stand with her and say, you know what? Like, I'm going to share those arrows too. I agree with her. I know this is unpopular. You can call me whatever you call her. Whatever hate you want to heap on her, you can also heap on me. That is how we change things. That's how we give each other courage. Courage begets courage. When you see one person stand up in the midst of the flying arrows, in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the persecution that you get for having an unpopular opinion or stance, when other people stand up and they share those arrows, that courage is then contagious. Courage is a contagion. And so that is what we need in this generation. We live in a world that is run by cowards, that is run by fools. I like to say that we live in a cakeistocracy. That means the least competent people somehow rise to the top. And that seems like our government right now. And so we need a lot of smart women. Like, we need a lot of competent women. We need a lot of well-spoken women. I love that this organization helps young people speak well and write well. I mean, you guys know you're in the generation, most of your generation doesn't even know what a comma is. So we need people who are competent in that. I mean, communication is the basis, the foundation for understanding. If you can learn how to communicate well, how to communicate your passionate ideas in a knowledgeable and a polite and a persuasive way, I guarantee you, you will so far surpass where your peers are, and you will make a difference, because that's so rare in this day and age. So fight to be courageous, fight to be competent, fight to be knowledgeable, fight to be well-spoken and a good communicator. Fight to share the arrows with the other people who are standing up in an unpopular but a courageous way. Don't be afraid to speak up for those unpopular issues. And when you see someone getting canceled or lambasted for something that you know that you agree with, do not sit there quietly. Stand up for that girl on your campus, that person that you know, that person who shared an unpopular Instagram story and you see is just getting bullied on social media. You reshare it. You share it and you say, I agree with her and I don't care, you can come for me too, even though it's scary. We have to be able to link arms. We can't let ourselves just stand alone in isolation, or else we will never make an impact. And so just to end, and then I think we're going to do some Q&A just as a reminder. So number one, share the arrows. That's one way to ensure that you have courage and the other women around you have courage when they're being thrown at people for having a stance that you also have that doesn't deserve cancellation. 2, we have to build community with like-minded people, and together we build up the things that we want. And I know a lot of you have done that, but rather than just being on a liberal college campus and saying, I really hate being on a liberal college campus, I really feel so alone, what are you going to do to push back? Are you going to create an organization on your own? Are you going to speak up? Are you going to create some kind of event that represents the conservative values that you have? What can you do in the tiny speck of eternity on which God has placed you, the tiny plot of earth on which God has placed you for such a finite amount of time? What are you going to do to make the world around you better and more courageous? That's your job. Doing that to the glory of God, that's enough. And if you don't know what that looks like, simply do the next right thing in faith. Do the next right thing in faith with excellence for the glory of God, courageously, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular. That's what we need in this chaotic cakistocracy in which we live. We need courageous women willing to stand for the things that matter. Thank you.
Wow, I'm inspired.
Thank you.
You know, Mrs. Luce has a quote, "Courage is the ladder on which all the other virtues climb."
Exactly. I love that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we
Thank
do
you.
have some time for Q&A. We have 2 mics in the back. Just raise your hand, and if you wouldn't mind giving your name and your college so Allie can know where you're from. And we have about 15 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Yep. All right, don't be shy.
Oh, goodness. Yes.
Hi, Allie. Thank you
Hi.
for speaking today. So I listen to your podcast, and I know you talk about a lot when you're having a discussion with someone you disagree with. Make them clarify their terms, ask them a lot of
Yes.
questions. Can you just talk more about that, because I really love that concept?
Yes, thank you for asking that. That's a great question. So many times, I think I noticed this most after the Black Square Day on Instagram, that what I call progressive white woman Instagram is a very interesting place. It is, I won't be as harsh as I want to be about it, but it's a place with a lot of information, a lot of messages out there that really don't have a whole lot of substance. So you'll hear a lot of terms like equity, do better, do the work, whatever it is. And I noticed there were so many terms, all of these people that I didn't even know knew anything about politics or even watched the news, sounded like they had just graduated from, you know, I don't know, Ibram X. Kendi's graduate class. And so in order to have these conversations with friends that I love and that I know that we share the same values, but who were talking about a lot of left-wing stuff that I was confused about, rather than just saying, you're wrong, here's why you're wrong, I would say, what do you mean by X? Before I ever made an argument. This really works in the abortion conversation too. When people say, this is a matter of bodily autonomy, this is a matter of choice, before I ever make an argument, I ask questions to get the other person to define their terms like down to the details. What do you mean by bodily autonomy? Okay, what do you mean by choice? What do you mean by reproductive rights? When do you think life begins? Why do you think it starts there and not at conception? Why do you think a baby at, 10 weeks gestation is less of a human than a baby at 20 weeks gestation? How do we pick and choose which humans are okay to murder and which humans are not? Now, sometimes this will lead a person into a tizzy of frustration because I've realized that even the Democrats on Capitol Hill have not thought through their stance on abortion at all. And so the questioning can actually get someone frustrated, but you don't do it in a way that's antagonistic. You do it in a genuinely curious way to see if they'll answer. And your job in every conversation in which that you're disagreeing with someone is not to change their mind right then. Your job is to plant a seed. Your job is to make them start thinking. And they might not think of it or come to a different conclusion for 10 more years. They might not even remember the conversation that you had. But you ask them questions to make them start thinking. Or maybe they realize, you know what, I don't even know what I meant by equity. I don't know what I mean by social justice. What do I mean by that? And they start digging in. Maybe they change their mind then. Maybe they don't. Same with any other issue. But asking questions before you ever enter into an argument and make sure that you both decide on the same definitions of the terms that you're using. It's a really good way to not get combative and to potentially change someone's mind over time.
Hi, My name's Brianna. I actually am a grad student at GCU as well now.
Cool.
You talked about your speech at UC Berkeley and how it was very hostile from the crowd.
Yes.
As conservatives on campus, when people are hostile with us, I know sometimes I personally feel overwhelmed. How did you keep your cool, and how can we stay level-headed when the left seems to be attacking in vicious fashion?
Yeah, that's a really good question. GCU, I've been there before. It's an awesome school, but I know that doesn't mean that everyone thinks the same way, and that hostility definitely exists. So I've been in plenty of combative situations, and you want to be in the place of control when you're in an argument. That means never losing your cool or even showing emotion. If you can be the peaceful person, the inquisitive person, the unoffended person, the person who lets things just kind of roll off her like Teflon, you're in control of the argument. Even if you don't know what to say, that's fine. If the other person is yelling at me like there was this one girl, I don't even know what she said, but she was screaming like a banshee at me. And at the end, I didn't know what to say. At the end, I just said, "Do you have a question?" And everyone just laughed. And then she sat down. And it was just like, I just kept my cool, and I asked her a question, and she didn't know what to say, and she got frazzled. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying, stay in control of the situation. If you have a response to what they say, that's fine, but you don't have to dignify their hysteria with a response if you don't want to. You can ask a question. You can say, "That's a great question. You know what? I'll think about that. If you're willing to have a conversation with me at this day, I will." They probably won't, but they might. Or you could always offer, this is what I do with friends who disagree with me, "Hey, could you send me something to read on that? Because I don't know a whole lot about that. Would you be willing to listen to this podcast or watch this video or read this book? If so, let's read it. Let's come together and have a conversation." So I would say keep your cool. Don't ever let them offend you. Don't ever raise your voice. Don't be emotional. Let them handle that if they want to. I think that is a win, even if you never even say anything.
Hi, my name is Emma, and I go to Christopher Newport University in Virginia. Could you talk a little bit about us as conservative women trying to marry a nice conservative man on college campuses with the hookup culture?
Yes. Okay, how many people, well, actually, you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to. I was going to say, how many people are single? But I know that this is a big issue, and I saw this meme or tweet the other day, and it was like, "Do millennials who are married feel like you got the last chopper out of Nam?" And I was like, a little bit, yes, because I got married, it was right before people were on Tinder and things like that, right before the dating app phase. And so you guys are taking on a whole new set of challenges. And if you're a Christian, or if you have someone who has any set of values at all and any standard, it can be really difficult to meet someone in today's environment. And I don't know if I have specific advice for you, except that I'll give you a little bit of hope in that it only takes one. I have a friend who is beautiful and awesome and wonderful, and she is still looking for, a guy that she really wants to settle down with, and she's like, it's never gonna happen, but it only takes one person. It doesn't take 10 guys that you wanna fall in love with. It only takes one person that's right. And so that could be the only person that you date, or it might take a while to find them. And then the other thing is that a lot can happen in a year. That's what I always say. There's no reason to feel hopeless, oh my gosh, I'm 22 or 26 or 36 or whatever it is, and it's never going to happen. Maybe not. I'm not saying that marriage is guaranteed. That's not God's plan for everyone, and I know that's never fun to hear, but it's true. We don't know. We don't have that guarantee, although I know that everyone wants that. A lot can happen in a year. It only takes one. Put yourself in situations, in contexts, in organizations, and events where you would find that person. You're probably not going to find them in the basement of a fraternity house. It's probably not going to happen. I'm not saying that that's always a bad place to be. I'm just saying that if you're looking for someone who shares your values and you want to start there, rather than start in some superficial place and then try to figure out 5 days later, do we have the same values? That just ends in so much heartbreak. If you want to start in a place where share values and then work from there, try to find someone in a place where those values are present. That's not always how it has to happen, for sure. But yeah, be where the good men are.
My name is Kirsten. So I was like last year, not kicked out, but like pushed out of my sorority for being conservative.
I'm so sorry.
And I was just wondering if you had like any advice or like words of encouragement for like other people who might be going through the same thing.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that happened. It doesn't matter how brave you are or how strong you are in your position. No one likes to feel rejected, and no one likes to feel bullied or have untrue things said about you or have your character maligned. And so any feelings of like sadness that you have of that is totally normal and I think completely legitimate. However, what I would say is college, it doesn't seem like it right now, college is very short. And it's an important time in your life, but it's not the most important time in your life. And I know everyone puts a lot of pressure on college to say, like, this is the greatest time in your life. You have to enjoy every second of it. And first of all, the past 2 years probably haven't been that enjoyable, but you have to, you have to do all these things. Like, this is where your life begins. You have to find your husband. You have to know what you're doing with the rest of your life. And you have to just, live life to the fullest. And that is true for a lot of people. Some people say that was the best years of their life. But honestly, that's sad. Like, it's sad. If like a 28-year-old is like, college are the best years of my life, well, that's already passed. That's only 4 years of your life. Like, you want every stage of your life to be better and better. As you become more secure in who you are, more secure in your faith in the Lord, more sure of what you say, yes, it might always hurt when you look back at college and you think about that period in your life. But there will come a day also where you say, I see now that either that doesn't matter at all, or what happened to me then actually set me up for something so much better. There's a phrase, I did not come up with it, but I read it a long time ago, that man's rejection is often the Lord's protection. You never know what kind of rejection or closed door or hurt thing that you go through that God can use for something so much better. And I think that you will be honored and you will be blessed for staying true in your integrity, for staying true to who you are and true to your values, not compromising just to be liked. I guarantee you would have way more sadness and way more regret down the line if you had done that than what you did, which is stand strong even when it was unpopular. So it's worth it. College is short. Being an adult is so much better than being in college. Not having homework never gets old. Last question.
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning, ma'am, or good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Julia Malcolm. I'm from Maine Maritime Academy, and we came down with a group of college Republicans.
Cool.
I just had a question. How do you reclaim or overcome an argument with liberal men or liberal women that push you out of the conversation by saying that you are a gender traitor, you're not a real woman, you can't have opinions about abortion or feminism or things like that because you don't align with a certain perspective?
Yeah, so if they shut you down or silence you because of that, then there's, there may not be that much that you can do, and that's okay. I mean, if they literally just shut you out or block you or whatever, there's really nothing that you can do to override that. But, I heard someone say something, well, here's what I would say, that everyone cares about a group that they are not a part of. So, again, you can turn it around and ask a question. So if they said to a guy, well, you can't care about abortion because you don't have a uterus, first of all, have them define guy and see if they can do that. Second, I would say, well, so does that mean that if you're rich, you can't care about the poor? Or if you're a citizen, that you can't care about an immigrant? If you are in one group, that you can't care about the rights of another group? That would be a real problem for most people who consider themselves bleeding heart liberals and empathetic and caring about, the most vulnerable in our society. Of course you care about people that are not in your same group. And they don't get to define, quite frankly, like what it means to be a true woman when they can't even say what a woman is. They don't have a right to say that it is moral to have a particular stance on abortion when they think that slaughtering a baby should be legal. And so you remember that you are in the position of truth in that case. And that's not an arrogant stance, that's just a confident stance. You stay confident in truth, and if they want to be hysterical and butt you out of the conversation, then that's on them. That's not your responsibility. Thank you so much.